Reflections of the sun. Reflections of the sun. Moody. Reflections of the sun. Moody. Reflections of the sun. Moody. Reflections of the sun. Make it one.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Detroit Association of Black Storytellers 4th Friday Story Hour. This month we have a special treat for you. We have the Legends of DABS. These are the ladies who actually started DABS 30 years ago. And they decided, along with a couple other people who are elders and helped put the group together, came together tonight to put a Black History program. They titled it Black History is America, and it's from the Legends of DABS. You're going to love this program. We hope that you enjoy tonight's showing and viewing. It will be on YouTube. We started some things new that we think you'll enjoy. It will be without interruptions, almost like watching television almost when you get on there and see it. The big thing is that we've been doing this for a little while. And we hope that you've been enjoying the past few months of what we've been trying to get across, and that's the stories out to you for your enjoyment. But tonight, this is one that you probably will remember forever. And we hope that you enjoy tonight's program. Let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Legends of DABS Black History Program.
I am so glad you came to join us today. We have some wonderful storytellers, and we have wonderful things to tell you. My name is Amy Jackson, the first president of the Detroit Association of Black Tellers. And I am so happy to be here and delighted that you are all here to hear the beginning of the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. My sister, Edith Gamble, called me one day to ask me to call Dr. Barbara Coulter, the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum for the Detroit Public Schools in the 1980s. She was searching for storytellers who happened to also be public school teachers. She wanted them to become a part of the storytelling network. You see, Dr. Coulter was introducing her concept of storytelling to educators as a teaching strategy with the help of retired teacher volunteers. I joined the group not knowing anything about storytelling, but my sister had instructed that I do that. And I had become a stay-at-home mom. However, I did know a little bit about storytelling because I had been on Broadway and had taken acting lessons, and I had done a lot of New York TV. So, as a storytelling network, I became close friends with Anita Timbers, who was a senior to me. And she was a storytelling advocate and had been to a few National Association of Black Storytellers conventions. So in 1988, she was on her way to the NABS convention, and me, I was on my way to the NAPS convention. NAPS standing for the Preservation and Perpetuation of Storytelling. One was in Jonesboro, Tennessee, and NABS was in California. She came back and we compared notes and decided we both would go to the next National Association of Black Storytellers meeting in Brooklyn, New York. We came back just filled with excitement and joy and wanted to share what we had learned and saw at the National Association of Black Storytellers. And so in 1990, at the NABS convention in New Orleans, at least 20 of us from NABS, from the Storytelling Network, joined all the rest and went to New Orleans. We were so excited. We just started buzzing. Wouldn't it be nice to bring them to Detroit and let them know how many wonderful things are happening in Detroit? So in 1991, at the NABS convention in Horry and Georgetown counties, North Carolina, there were over 20 of us from Detroit. Anita Timbers and I, by word of mouth and notes in the door, invited those people who had come from the network to join us for a meeting to discuss bringing the National to Detroit. We sent the letter and decided we would send them a note to let them know we would like to bring the National to Detroit, Michigan. They quickly let us know we had to become an organization. We had to become an affiliate before we could consider such a massive undertaking. That meant we had to call a Detroit meeting. Well, Anita, at this time, because she was retired, she was busy traveling. And so I was left with getting in touch with everyone at the Storytelling Network. How do I do it? I didn't know how to do it, what day we would have it, when we would have it. So we both went back to the National Association for the Preparation of Storytelling in Jonesboro, Tennessee. At that time, my sister Jenny Crittenden, Sylvia Brown, and myself were coming back from Jonesboro, Tennessee, because we went together. And we decided, why don't we decide to have the convention? We'll just make it up since Nita is busy. We called her Nita. Anyway, we decided that it would be at Jenny's house. At least she invited us to be at her home. And Sylvia Brown and myself decided on the date would be Halloween night. And when we finished that conversation, I was given the job to write everybody. So I sent letters to all public schools, to all public libraries in the Detroit area, and to our Storytelling Network volunteers. It was very tedious and a costly job that I'll get to later. For Jenny's house on Halloween night, October 30th, 1991 at 6 p.m., it was a success. Her house was packed, and she had a huge home in Palmer Woods. And so we all fit in. I mean, all kinds of people came. And we were so excited. We were just shocked that so many people agreed that we should have a storytelling network in Detroit. That night, DABS was named the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. And I became the first president, Elaine Gregory, the secretary, and Nisha Timbers was the vice president, and Gloria Lamb became the constitution and creator of our bylaws. We were just so excited. I got the letter to NABS in time for them to welcome us into the national and announce ourselves as people who wanted to bring the national to their city. You see, a lot of people want to bring the national to their city. It was difficult. It was a very difficult job, yet very rewarding for all of us. One thing for sure, you need money, you need sponsors, you need radio and TV support, you need all kinds of support. As a matter of fact, Dr. Mildred Sinnis, our treasurer, and myself and Sylvia Brown gave our year salary to the success of becoming an organization to bring the national to Detroit. Also, Gloria Lamb had invited the board, the national board, to her home, 30 of them, mind you, and had a fabulous dinner for them, and at no cost to anyone but Gloria. And so it was that kind of giving. Everyone wanted to bring the national because we were so excited. So we made hotel reservations over and over and over again, because as soon as they found out we were a Black organization, our reservations were canceled. Of course, everyone wanted to be the convention, you might say, director, but Gloria Lamb was director, or it was the president, so she named Vivian Butler as our convention person to run things. Alma Greer was our president at that time, and she had so much to do. She had to get everybody on different committees. There were over 30, like who's going to transport the people from the airport to the hotel and back, from the hotel to the airport, who was going to get the person from meeting to meeting, because we had to go see Belle Isle, we had to take them to Canada, there were so many things to do when you are planning a convention. And thank God, Gloria Lamb and Alma Greer had experience at working with convention planning and were invaluable assets. Most members were not, so countless arguments ensued at every planning meeting. After the convention, we were all exhausted by the mayhem. We even gave an award to Dudley Randall, who was the first person to start a Black publishing company in Detroit, Michigan, and he was also Poet Laureate of Detroit. We gave an award to Dr. Charles H. Wright, and he was living at the time. We were so thrilled to give him the award for having started the Black Museum, now called the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. So we had a lot of successes, and people are still talking about the wonderful time they had in Detroit. However, it was damaging in many ways, for we lost more than half of our membership immediately following the convention, and they have not returned. I am thankful to be living and to see the progress we have made under President Anthony Ross and today's members. I know it is important that we continue as a group to tell our stories to our children, to their parents, to our families, to America, and to the world. Yes, we have had several presidents since 1991, and only one other male president, and his name was and is none other than the wonderful, wonderful, phenomenal storyteller that you're going to hear tonight, and that is Ivory. So, as I close, I want you to know that it was not easy. It was not easy bringing a convention to Detroit. And the membership has grown, and we are so blessed that we are moving forward. In closing, let us keep in mind that in this world, if we can do anything, if we can do anything, be kind. Thank you so much. I am so glad to tell you this wonderful story about the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers. Vickie Slaughter is our first storyteller tonight. She is a premier storyteller and has won the Liars Contest at the National Association of Black Storytellers 2 times. She's the only one that has done that. I was the first from Michigan to win the Liars Contest, but she has won 2. And trust me, it's not easy to do that. And you will see why she won that title. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Vickie Slaughter.
By and by, Lord, by and by, there's a better home awaiting in the by, Lord, in the sky. Good evening. My name is Vickie Slaughter, and today I'm going to tell you a story entitled Miss Eula's Circle. Let's tell you what Miss Lula's Circle is and how I came to know about it. When I was a little girl living in Detroit in the 50s, and every night my mother would have me say my prayers and she put me to bed. But before she put me to bed, she'd either read a story or tell a story to me. Oh, it was wonderful. I was hooked. Oh my goodness, addicted to a story every night. I couldn't wait to get in bed. Well, one day when I was in kindergarten, she says, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you or read you any stories anymore." No amount of crying and begging would change her mind. She said, "You're going to have to learn to read for yourself. From now on, you're going to read me a story every night." So what happened is she bought me these little books. I think they were called Little House books. And every night after we said our prayers, she would sit with me while I struggled to reading the stories. As a result, I became an early reader. Where things were going fine, about 3 years later, my mother said, I had a dream. I dreamed about this white hat with a gray stripe going across. And one of her friends said, well, that's a practical nurse's hat. So my mother decided, I think that I'm going to be a practical nurse. I'm going to go to school. So what happened, my father worked in the factory all afternoon. My mother had long hours. She was a beautician. And I had the streets. And I was wild, Vickie Wild in them. But I did have enough sense to come home at when the street lights came on. But I mean, I really was wild. I would do things like go to the movies at 4 years old because the movie was right around the corner, and watch a double feature. So my parents said, okay, we're going to send you to your grandparents. And so when I went to my grandparents' house, they lived in the country. They lived in a place called Perry County, Arkansas. And the little town's name was Bigelow, and it was set right on the river. It was so beautiful. The sky was so beautiful, it didn't even look for real. So it was okay with me. I was fine. And I had met my grandparents. What happened next was that I met my second storyteller of my life was my grandfather, Herschel Harvey Gray. My grandfather had been in the army during World War I in France, and it was not good. I was the oldest grandchild, so I spent a lot of time with him, and I was the biggest one. And we cut wood, we planted crops, we harvested crops, we did all sorts of things together. And he would talk to me. He told me, he said, once when I was in the hospital in the army tent in France, he said, everybody was around me dying from dysentery. And I heard a voice and he said, stand up and live. So what I did, I stood up and I lived. But he also told me other stories. He told me stories about Booker T. Washington. Usually I did all outdoor chores, but this particular day, he told me to go and clean the living room up. I cleaned the living room up, and then he came in the room with his hands behind him. And then he brought his hands out, and they had white gloves on them. And he proceeded to wipe the table, wipe the shelves off. And he told me, mm, 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 you better go to college, girl, because you sure can't get a job cleaning Miss Ann's house. Then he told me a story about Booker T. Washington, how he put himself through school. And his first test that he had was cleaning a room. And from that, he got a job as a janitor and his tuition was paid. But now I want to tell you about Miss Eula's Circle. Miss Eula Gilgray was my grandmother. She was a tiny little lady, but she was strong and muscular and beautiful. After 7 children, she raised my mother and all her children, a total of 8 children she raised. But what she would do when we were there, she'd get up in the morning before daybreak and she'd fix a meal fit for a king. We'd have bacon, eggs, sausage, ham, fried chicken, fried rabbit to go along with those big, giant biscuits that she made. Well, we knew, and she taught us girls that you had to get up and fix breakfast for your children in the morning. Because when I got up, I had 4 cows to milk before I went to school. Then after I got to school, I went to school half the day. And then those school buses would pick us up, the ones that we couldn't ride in the morning to school, they would pick us up and take us for a half a day to work in the field. So I would work in the field picking cotton. I was no Harriet Tubman. I could not pick 500 pounds of cotton, but I could at 7 years old pick 100 pounds, but I couldn't drag it. So I picked next to my grandfather. And as I picked, he would drag my bag along with us. The next thing Grandma taught us was always to put your best foot forward in behavior and also looks. And like I said, she was a beautiful woman with long black hair, and she would part it down the middle and braid it, and she'd tie a little string on it. Every day she got up and she put on freshly ironed clothes. But what I remember most about her was her putting on those hose, rolling them up past her knee, then rolling them down and putting a knot in them, and putting on those spotless shoes, getting her hoe, and going out and working in the field all day in stockings. Well, nevertheless, I feel guilty sometimes when I get ready to go to church in the summer and it's really hot, and I think about grandma, I go back and I put my stockings on. So the final thing that I want to tell you about her was her Miss Eula's circle. She taught us that you had to put God first. You had to pray. You had to walk hand in hand with God. When we got up in the morning, we didn't pray. But now that I'm older, before I put my feet down on the floor, I pray. Thank you, God, for waking me up with my right mind. Thank you, God, for breathing and being healthy. So we would go to eat this breakfast that she had cooked before day, and we would bless it. We blessed every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then on Sundays came Miss Eula's circle. On Sundays, we all gathered around in a circle, and everyone was expected to pray, even the baby. The baby was expected at least to say, Amen, or Jesus wept. After we all prayed, and she prayed for all the children in the family, then she would step up and she would end the prayer with, Lord, God Almighty, would you stretch out your hand and send your angels to provide a guiding light for my children as they go about their day. And as a grandmother, I understand this now. I think about my uncle, H.O., who was in Korea at the time. Excuse me. I think about my mother, who was working as a nurse in the emergency room in the inner city, Detroit. I think about my aunt, my next oldest aunt, who was working in North Africa as a museum curator. I think about my twin aunts. They were working in little Black one-room schoolhouses. And my one little feisty aunt, Frenchie, and I think about the time she took the key and went to town, and she slipped into this room where they had all the books, and the books for the Black children were locked up, and she unlocked that cabinet, and she took those books. And how she fell down the stairs, she said, all the way she got found out because she fell down the stairs all the way down. But all she did is said, I better not have broken my heel. She gathered up the books and went on. I think about my baby aunt who was teaching in Arizona at an Indian reservation. And then I think about us there living on the river. Anytime a tornado could come up, sometimes if you think it was just a little rain in the river, the levees broke and the river came right up to your front door. I think about when I went down there, segregation had just started, and the governor stood on the porch of Central High School with an axe handle and said, it's not going to be any integration here. And it wasn't for a whole year. And I think about when the sheriff and his deputy would come down on the farm and give us warnings. And my grandmother would have to say, well, if they ever come back or other people like them, you take the baby and hide and don't come out no matter what happens. So grandma would end that prayer and she reach on behind her and she say, Lord God, would you please bring your please bring your angels on up behind my children. Bring them like an avenging angel and protect them from every hurt, harm, and danger. So that was Miss Eula's circle. All Miss Eula's daughters and sons came back home, and they brought their spouses, their husband and wives with them. Let the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by. There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Miss Eula's circle. Thank you.
Genevieve Bellamy is our second teller. I've known Genevieve, I think, since I was 4 or 5 years old. And she always tells delightful stories about our homes and about the times when we were little children. Mind you, we are all in our 80s now. And so she has such a memory, and her stories are so feeling and heartfelt because they come from the heart. They come from the knowledge of what has been. Her mom and dad came from a different area than Detroit. She came from the South, and she has many stories to tell that you may be surprised that she can remember all of these things. But however, tonight, you're going to hear Genevieve Bellamy, who has been with Great Books for over 20 years. She is a fabulous teller, a fabulous lady, and one of the best tellers when it comes to talking about times gone by. Now you're ready to listen to Genevieve Bellamy.
Lived a long time and a good time. And to make things what they are today, we've had to have basic good parents. Well, my story is about my father as he grew older. I was the oldest of 7 children. At the age of 12, I used to have to get up and bake 3 pans of biscuits for us to have biscuits and Alka-Seltzer. Can you imagine? We saw biscuits and Alka-Seltzer. On the weekend, Daddy said if we'd done our work and done well, we'd get a surprise or we'd have a good meal. And that meal was tip-top bread and a pound of bologna. We thought we were living high. Well, now let me tell you a little bit about Daddy. Daddy was a sharecropper. He was the best cotton picker on the plantation. He worked hard to feed his family. And still he had to assist with his brothers and sisters. His mother had 18. Can you imagine 18 children? After giving birth to each child the next day, my grandmother was back in the cotton field, picking cotton, due to the fact they had to have that crop in. You see, they had to buy the seed, plant the cotton, hoe the land. Well, time came along and Daddy, like any other boy, was out playing with the white boys. He cheated them out of their money. Well, need I say, they went home crying and telling their fathers about it. Well, at that time, when we did wrong, white children could correct our behavior. Can you imagine? Never call us by our last name. But let me get back to the story. Daddy was about 16, and the white fathers went down to see his father. And my father knew not to come home because he'd have the whipping of his life. Here's son Smith taking their boy's money. Well, his father stood up and told him, you go home and whoop yourn and I'll whoop mine. Well, Daddy didn't go home. He caught the next train out of there. And he was telling us how he would catch the train. I said, well, what time did you get the train? Did you buy a ticket? He said, no, child, we didn't buy no tickets. We would just hop on the train, and the hobos or whoever was on there, on the cars, would make room. But they knew what time that train went by. Well, he made it to the north. And he lived with an uncle, but he still had to go back when his father was dying to help his mother to come north. Well, Daddy lived a pretty rough life and a hard life. And when we came along, he would tell us how he lived. It wasn't easy. He worked from sun up to sundown. But when he got north, he had a little bit better. Not a whole lot better, but a little bit. Let me tell you. And when he got there north and we grew up and he would be telling his story of his life, I'd sit and I'd listen intensely. And I'd ask questions. My brothers did not, or my sister were much younger than I, and they didn't get the gist of living south and coming north and working hard. Well, as Daddy grew older, we got together, and how can I tell you, when we got together, Daddy was to spend so much time at each one's house. Well, everybody didn't get the same amount of time. And most of the time, Daddy called me Genevieve. Genevieve, give me some water, Genevieve. Well, as time went by and my mother had passed, he lived with me for a time. And then I placed him at the Hannah house. Placing him there, I thought, was one of the better or the best ideas. Daddy was getting up there in age, and I wanted my freedom too. And as I think about it now, I thought about how hard he worked. And he always made sure we had every holiday there was. He was a good daddy. Well, when I placed him at the Hannah house, he was up there in age. And but he always had his own mind. And he would do things maybe because he didn't have an education. I believe third grade. He was pulled out of school to work in the fields. But let me get back to him and his aging. When he stayed at the Hannah house, he planned and did the things he enjoyed doing. And sometimes they weren't the things that should have been done, or it wasn't the way cultured people would welcome. And one of the things was he had had his own freedom. And now he was here with these elderly ladies and gentlemen, most of them educated. Daddy didn't have that education. But we were proud of him. And he made a wonderful living for us as a family. Well, as time went by, they sent me a notice and said I'd have to place my father elsewhere. Now, this is my daddy. You gonna tell me I'm to place him elsewhere? What has he done that's so horrible? I paid them faithfully every month, but came to see him regularly to see what he was doing. Well, they explained some of the things he would do. He would go to the refrigerator in his underclothes, undershirt and shorts. Well, he was with a genteel crowd there at the Hannah House, and sometimes he'd go to the community refrigerator and they allowed them to pick up treats, or snacks. Well, Daddy would stand there in his underwear and he'd make a selection. Well, the women became quite upset about it, and they did not want him patrolling the halls in his underclothes. That was one of the things. Then many times he would get his money and go down to the ladies in the office and say, which one of you women want to go to the racetrack with me? I'm going to racetrack day. Well, they weren't accustomed to his free soul way of life. And they told me that he needed closer assistance. Now, like I said, they talking to me about my dad, the man that had fed and clothed me. I never missed a holiday. All of us, we always had what we needed and what we wanted. And we saw him work very, very hard. I said, who are you talking about? But like I said, life goes by so quickly. And as life goes by, you become the parent, and the parent becomes the one who needs the time, the help, the discipline. Well, I went in for the meeting, and at the meeting, they had written quite a bit on him and how he had reacted to so much. Where were their tolerance? He was a man that had taken care of his family and helped take care of many others. And yet you want to put him out. Well, now I'm looking at him from another viewpoint. I loved him. When he told the story of his life, how he had to live to help his mother and father, could not go to school, I had a whole lot of heart for him, because he made sure we went to school and we had the proper wear and the food. Now, after listening to them, I listened kind of with a sour mind. I didn't want to hear what they had to say. But as I listened, and they told me the discipline he needed an assistant, and so much, I sat back quietly, and then I looked at my father, and I looked at him, and he addressed himself, and he was capable of doing that. Many times he got his shirt backwards or didn't put on two ties or did things. But as you age, you return to the infantile life that you lived. You don't continue to think or plan and do. You see, the child becomes the adult. And as I looked at my father, I saw he addressed himself. He was clean. And then I looked down and I looked at his shoes. One was black and one was brown. And I said quietly to him, Daddy, look at your shoes. Because I didn't want to agree with anything they had said about him. And when he looked down, he said, yeah, child, look at them. One shine and one don't. And I said, no, Daddy, look at him. And he looked at him again. He said, yeah, child, look at him. One shine and one don't. I said, Daddy, they're not shining. He said, yes, my child. I wore these and I got another pair upstairs just like them. One shine and one don't. I told them at that time, pass me the papers, I'll sign them and take him where he can get more assistance. I took my daddy home and enjoyed the few lives that he had. And he brought us joy many a times. I have some more time left, and I want to tell you all that are listening about the month of February. Now, you know what the month of February is. It's the month that's given to us culturally. But we still have so many heroes in our midst. And one hero I want to speak about is Mrs. Edith Davis. I think some of you might recognize her by name. A remarkable woman. I copied, listened, and followed in her footsteps. My mother did too, because my mother was very young. And believe it or not, what she has done in our lives, and for those that are who are listening, we should always bring her out. During World War II, when we were sitting in the back of the bus in the restrooms, couldn't eat at the lunch counter. World War II came along, things didn't change. But did you know what this remarkable woman did? She went out to the Black soldiers and made it fit for them. Because, see, the white soldiers had just about everything given to them. But how we made it into the war and then separated so harshly. But we fought, and we have fought every war since we've been here, 1519, along with them, the European culture. Now there's another lady that was named Mrs. Edith Davis. Another remarkable woman named after her mother, the very first Black woman auditor. Did you hear that? The same family. Then we go on down the line, and who do we have? A friend I know so well that I follow her through life, and boy, did we have fun. She was the queen of Emancipation Day in Canada. Now we get down to others in the Davis family. And who do we have? The youngest. Traveled the world with Sammy Davis Jr. Remarkable. You see, these were, and still are, my heroes. And is this not the month of February that who we are proud of, we speak of? I have lived 86 years and have enjoyed every moment and hour of it. And the one that was the queen for Emancipation Day was a little close. We kind of enjoyed life together, and we're still doing so. And I just want you to know about the Davis family, because I tell my children about them all the time. Hello, Davises. Hello. As my time should be running out, I want to say to everyone, let us know our culture. Let us know where we're going, where we've been, and all of the stars that we see are not always the stars on the screen and the television. There are those who live with you, beside you, and appreciate a good neighbor. Have a good night.
Hi, everyone, again, because I'm excited that my sister, Jenny Crittenden, the one who offered her home to be our first meeting. My sister Jenny is enthralled in science of every kind. She always has a scientific reason for agreeing or disagreeing with things. She is my sister, of whom I am so proud. She was a great books leader for over 30 years. She was a science teacher in the Detroit Public Schools and did all kinds of science experiments with her children that the parents are still talking about, when she had them consider drinking their urine, not a lot of it, just enough so they would know how it tastes. Oh, what a shocker. She loves animals. She loves the outdoors. She's a ski person. She is just my wonderful sister. Ladies and gentlemen, Jenny Crittenden.
When I was brought into this world, it was a wonderful, wonderful world as it is today. There are little problems because when I was born, it was during the World War and Depression. My parents had a hard time, but they made it. And when I was brought into this world, I came into a wonderful Black family. I think I was number 13, and few came after me. But I loved my happy home. And I often thought about many things, what we take for granted, what we research, how we live. I was always curious. In my happy home, one thing I really loved to do was to go down the steps, walk that little short sidewalk that kind of went to an end, kind of at a slant, and kind of curved around. Well, in that little spot is a pile of dirt. A lot of people take things for granted. I don't. I research everything. Every day, I'd go to that pile of dirt and I'd sit on the ground and I'd watch it. And it seemed to move. That's what my story is about. Don't take things for granted. My story is about dirt. There's dirt in that dirt. And do you know why I know? Because I used to make mud pies, a little water and a little mud. And I'd make the best old mud pies and put them in my little cardboard box and make me the best hamburgers on the block. But you know what my ancestors did? They took that same pile of dirt and they built foundations. They took that same pile of dirt and made the flat floor that they could lie on in their shanties and their hutches. They took that same pile of dirt and they made foundations. Do you know they even built the steps and the monument of the White House? Our White House in Washington, D.C. It was our ancestors that did it with their backbones and dirt. We take dirt for granted. We took the sands to build the pyramids. We took dirt to fill the foundations and the monuments that you see all around the world. We even took the sands and made the tombstones where we buried our loved ones. We were very, very adventurous. We were very inventive. And you know something else about dirt? Dirt moves. Have you ever looked at a pile of dirt? It moves. And when I look at dirt, I think about you. I think about me. I think about us. We are that dirt. We came from dirt and we return to dirt. When you look in a pile of dirt, it's all colors, just like our beautiful race. Pink and brown and black and taupe and gray and faded yellow and faded white. But it's beautiful. And when you look at that dirt again, you see the sparkles of red and blue, crimson, cream. The dirt smiles. The sun shines on that pile of dirt. Every morning, I'd come down and sit there and look at that dirt. But there's dirt in that dirt. There's silk that you can pick up and put in between some empty spaces. There's pretty dirt that's kind of black. You can spread over stuff. There's heavier dirt that you might want to put on the ground to protect it from something heavy. There are all kinds of dirt. There's peat dirt. There are even dirt that is 2 inches thick and some dirt that is miles thick under the ocean. We are blessed with all kinds of dirt. But when you're looking at a pile of dirt, it moves. There's life in it. There's stories in it. And we have so many stories to tell. Did I tell you that I was born on 12th Street? Yes, infamous 12th Street, where you had the race riots in 1976. And look where we are now. We've come a long way. And we're still moving in that dirt. So don't just pass by the dirt. Stop and take a look. Because I discovered something in my pile of dirt I didn't even know was there till I saw it move. It was my friend, my pet insect, and his name is dirt. My pet insect is a walking stick. Look it up. If you look long enough, you might see him too. Thank you. God bless all of you. Love you, my sisters and brothers. Thank you for being here.
Finally, our stellar teller, Mr. Ivory Williams, who has enthralled audiences throughout the United States. As a matter of fact, he's been called to do all kinds of workshops. And when he takes the stage, he just brings you right along with him. He's an artist. He's someone that has been a wonderful friend to storytelling and especially to DABS. He has been the kind of storyteller that even ventured to be the first male DABS president. It was not easy for him. It was difficult. Can you imagine trying to steer all those women who had been to the national and whose fault they knew everything and we didn't? He taught us a thing or two, and tonight he's going to teach you a thing or two. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and fellow storyteller, Mr. Ivory Williams.
Thank you, Elder Amy. Jambo means hello, Jambo, brothers and sisters. Hey, a while ago, I was asked if I would, someone said, Ivory, would you participate in the Black History Month event? And I said, sure, but you have to understand my take on Black history. And it is this: fight the power, fight the power, fight the power that be. Fight the power, fight the power, fight the power that be. Now, I realize that most of you don't know nothing about that. And as storytellers, we teach, we inform, we educate, as well as entertain. For those who do not know where that line came from, it's from the famous East Coast rap group, Public Enemy. And Fight the Power That Be is all about Black history. Our history is a history of one where stories, our history has been distorted, It's been changed. And in most cases, too many cases, we as Black people are not a part of history at all. And that is represented by the powers that be. And we have to fight the powers that be. Let me give you an example. Our Black icons, our scholars, such as W.E.B. Du Bois or the man, Carter G. Woodson, who started Black History Month as a Black History Week, they knew that Black history, that history, true and real history, was about inclusiveness and education. Let me give you an example. I'll ask you a question. What is that symbol of freedom and hope that sits in the middle of the New York harbor, holding a tablet in one hand, the right arm stretched out high as people travel by in boats? Since we don't have a lot of time, I'll give you the answer. And most people will say, why, that's the Statue of Liberty. And I will tell you that most people would be wrong. You see, the real title of that statue, and yes, it is a statue, but the real title is Liberty Enlightening the World. Liberty Enlightening the World. And that last bit has been removed. And there's a plaque. When you go to the Statue of Liberty today, there's a plaque that's plastered on the Statue of Liberty Enlightening the World that says, and we've heard this over and over again, give me your poor, your tired masses that will, let me make sure I get this right, your huddled masses that yearn to be breathed free. And then it's dated 1903. Which is over 2 decades after the unveiling of the Statue of Liberty Enlightening the World. And it was a gift to America from France, who went through their own revolutionary struggle with liberty. It was given to us to commemorate the emancipation of the American enslaved. It was commissioned by, and I want to get this name right, Edouard de La Boulaye. He and the other freedom fighters against slavery commissioned that, sent it over to America when they heard about the emancipation of the enslaved in America. So the inspiration for that was emancipation, not immigration. And that's how the powers that be subtly, and often not so subtly, change and redirect hiddenly our stories. Now, these anti-slavery activists, they made sure that we were supposed to notice at the foot of the statue, at the right foot of the statue, the broken chains and shackles that represented the end of forced servitude and oppression. Storytelling is a staple within our communities, the Black communities, and it's a key tool in our arsenal to inform, educate, and entertain. Now, someone may ask, stories, what are stories? And I'll answer, stories, stories, stories. Just what are stories? Stories are simply something that happened. Stories could have happened in the past. Stories could be happening right now. Or stories could happen in the future. Stories could be happy. Stories could be sad. Stories could be true, like all my stories. Or stories could be made up. But the most important thing about stories is that stories must be told. Now, you've heard from some fabulous storytellers their wonderful stories of their families. Well, let me tell you a story about one of mine. I grew up in a section of Detroit called the North End. And throughout the North End, throughout that neighborhood, people knew about and loved my grandma's hot, light, fluffy, buttery biscuits. Everyone loved my grandma's biscuits. Now, I don't know about you, but when we as kids were growing up, we were taught that it was impolite to take the last of anything. One slice of bread, one piece of meat. If it was the last one, no one took it because it was what? Impolite. Well, one Sunday, Grandma made a huge Sunday dinner with all the fixings and a large platter of these hot, light, fluffy, buttery biscuits, which she placed right in front of Grandpa. Now there was 6 of us grandkids, Grandma, Grandpa, and this large platter of hot, light, fluffy, buttery biscuits placed in front of Grandpa. Well, we ate and ate and ate, and after about 2.5 hours, we were about done. There was one biscuit left. I wanted that biscuit. We all wanted that biscuit, but no one took it because it was impolite. Just so happened about that time, a heavy thunderstorm came up with thunder and bright flashes of lightning. Every time lightning would flash, all the lights in the house would flicker. All of a sudden, there was a loud thunderclap, a bright flash of lightning, and all the lights in the house went out for about 2 seconds. While those lights were out, we heard this horrible scream. Oh, 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 oh. When those lights came back on, there was Grandpa's hand wrapped around that last biscuit with 7 forks sticking out of it. Now that's a story of my family. And that, like one of our storytellers said, there are plenty of stars that we see in the media, on TV, but most of the stars in our families, in our communities, go unseen. And it's important that we tell those stories. Storytelling is a powerful tool. Storytelling is the first art form, and it helps us communicate and think more deeply about serious issues that's in our community. We do that through storytelling. 'Twas an evening in November, as I well remember. I was strolling down the street in a drunken pride, but my knees were fluttered, so I landed in a gutter, and a pig came up and lay down by my side. As I lay in that gutter, thinking thoughts I should not utter, a passerby did softly say, "You could tell a man that boozes by the company he chooses." And at that, the pig got up and walked away. Now, some stories we could tell, our parents would tell us, watch out who you hang around with. That's what that story is about. There are lessons, there are morals in family stories. Watch out who you hang around with. But that same principle applies with adults as well. If you're not advancing or progressing at the rate that you think you should be, who do you have in your ear? Who are the people as adults you are listening to? That's the power of stories. It is important that we tell our stories. Don't let them die in our heads. The last thing about stories, the importance of stories, the deep messages of stories, to keep telling our stories. Don't be like this man, hard-working man, works long hours, and when he comes home from work, he chills a little bit with his buddies, watches some TV, and reads the newspaper. So he rarely has time to play with his daughter, his only daughter. One day, his daughter was really bored. She said, "Dad, will you please play with me?" But Dad had already worked some long hours. He had already chilled with his buddies for a little bit. He had already watched some TV and right now was reading the newspaper. He found a way to get his daughter out of his head. He noticed that on a page of that paper was a map of the world. He tore that map into a bunch of little bitty pieces of paper and he gave them to his daughter. He said, "Now, daughter, when you put this map together, I'll play with you." His daughter took the paper and went to a room. Dad had taken about 3 steps when he heard, "Dad, I'm done." He couldn't believe it. He went into his daughter's room, and sure enough, there was the map spread out as pretty as you please. He was astonished. He said, "How did you do that so fast?" His daughter said, "Well, Dad, I noticed that on the back of that map was the face of a man. And you know something, Dad? When I got the man together, the world turned out all right." So we have to be up on the importance of telling our stories. Yeah, we have some tremendous work responsibilities on the job or in our communities, but job number one should be the growth and development of our young people. Stories, stories, stories are meant to be told. Wouldn't this old world be better if the people we meet would say, "I know something good about you," and then treat us just that way? Wouldn't it be fine and dandy and with each handshake, warm and true, with this assurance that I know something good about you? Would it be nice if we praise the good we see, for there's such a lot of goodness in the worst in you and me? And wouldn't it be nice to practice that fine way of thinking too, that you know something good about me and I know something good about you? And with that, my tales are at an end, but I hope in my future we all meet again.
Thank you so much, Ivory. How wonderful. The more I hear that ending, the more I want to say it to everyone that I know and meet. It's been wonderful to be a part of this tonight. This is my first time on Zoom, so I plan to do some growing and learning. And I thank God for all of you for listening in, and let us know how you feel. Not just if you liked it, what would you think we should have added? Or what do you think we should take away? Or what do you think you would like to give us to add? We are all so important to this world. You know that angels fly because they take themselves lightly. So come and join us in storytelling and give us some ideas on what you would like to do. And I'm so thankful that DABS will be celebrating 30 years. And it's just exciting to know that we are doing so well. It has been a struggle, but I want to say a special thanks to our former president. He has done so wonderful. Tone, you have been a blessing, and I know God sent you. So don't go away, because those that follow you will have to learn from what you have given us. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the storytellers tonight, and may the best be with you always. Good night. This is Amy Jackson.
Thank you, Amy. Thank everybody for attending tonight's program. The Association of Black Storytellers 4th Friday Story Hour. Black History is America's History. A night with the legends of DABS. Please stay tuned following this broadcast for a DABS Afterglow Mix and Mingle shortly. We'll be showing where the Afterglow party is at, so hang on to your seats there. All rights of the DABS 4th Friday Story Hour is a copyright of the Detroit Association of Black Storytellers and cannot be rebroadcast or re-recorded without the permission and written consent of the Detroit Storytellers Association. If you missed any part of tonight's viewing tonight's performance, and there probably will be, because at the beginning, we're going to give us a week and we will edit this program, and you will be able to go on to DABS podcast and replay this broadcast in entirely. Or you can go to the YouTube page that you're on presently right now, and you'll be able to do the same thing in its entirety. If you live in the Detroit area and have an interest in becoming a storyteller, please contact DABS at dabstorytellers@gmail.com or give us a call at 313-442-3227. If you live outside of the Detroit area and are interested in becoming a storyteller, please visit the National Association of Black Storytellers website or call 410-947-1117 or email questions@nabsinc.org. NABS will connect you with the Storytelling Association in a city near you. Please join us next month for DABS Fourth Friday Story Hour. Friday, March 26th, 6:55, the doors open, and 7 p.m. the concert starts. Our storytellers next month are Lord Franklin, Loretta Vitek, Janice Burnett, and is hosted by our new elected president, John Two Gray. Please turn into that. On behalf of the storytellers tonight, Elder Genevieve Bellamy, Elder Vickie Slaughter, Elder Ivory Williams, Elder Jenny Crittenton, with their host and founder of DABS, Elder Amy Jackson, our music director, Michelle McKennedy, and our production director, Jasmine Ross. Along with the Association of Black Storytellers, we thank you for attending the DABS Fourth Friday Story Hour. See everyone Friday, March 26th at 7 p.m. for our next concert. Please be safe. By all means, wear a mask still. Peace and blessings to you all. Until next time.